Waqf, the term does not find any mention in Quran. As far as the term itself is concerned, there is no mention of Waqf. In fact, it goes to the extent of saying, Man zal ladhi yuqridullahu qardan hasana. Who is there who will give a beautiful loan to God? Quran is full of exhortations, asking people to spend money in Delhi, in Lucknow, in Patna, in Hyderabad, other places. Show me one charity institution. And these are the cities which have Waqf property worth of billions of rupees. You come to Patna, for instance, one after the other, you will see mall on the Waqf property, you will see residential apartments on Waqf property, and in Patna particularly I am saying, where the Waqf property is huge, simply huge. Quran itself says, إِنَّمَا الصَّدْقَاتُ لِلْفُقْرَاءِ وَالْمَسَاكِينَ. The faqir term has been used for Muslim destitute, and miskin has been used for non-Muslim destitute. You have totally failed, miserably failed, to work in accordance with the stated objective of the Waqf. Then something needs to be done to rectify the wrong which is being committed. I'm not saying it has been derailed. I'm saying it has lost its way. It has nothing to do with the religion. In the case of Waqf al-Awlad, it has been totally abused. My right is recognized. The property is there. Income is coming from that property. And despite my being identified as a legal beneficiary of this property, I am not receiving anything. Do we need to do something about it or not? I'm a non-Muslim and I'm not receiving, despite my right in it, I'm not receiving anything. I will feel concerned about it. I will urge the government to step into this and ensure that my rights are not trampled upon. Most part of the Waqf properties, they are not really Islamic. I will request you to go to Hyderabad and see the huge property, Darus Salam, which MIM secured. How that property is being abused for personal benefits. Go and see for yourself. Waqf board. Because Waqf boards have become den of all kind of malpractices. The man who has spent money, he does not want it to become part of the Waqf board, to be managed by the Waqf board. When the law was made, what they were saying? They were saying this is not to ban triple divorce, but to put Muslims, large number of Muslims, into jails. How many Muslims have been sent to jail? At the time of CAA, they were saying that this is not to give citizenship to the persecuted people. This is to deprive Muslims of their citizenship. How many Muslims have been deprived of the citizenship? So if you are crying wolf all the time, why you should take these people seriously? I consider myself a Muslim, but that is the relationship between me and my God. In public affairs, I am an Indian. Few cases of bulldozer and bulldozing whose houses? Who were killing people randomly. हमारे यहाँ कहा गया है, अपने यहाँ भारत में कहा गया, विद्या ददाति विनयम, विनयम विनयाद याति पात्रताम, पात्रत्वाम धनम आपनोति, धनाद धर्मम ततो सुखम. धन से धर्मार्थ के काम करने चाहिए. अली शरीयती वही कह रहा है.
Hello and welcome to HT's weekly talk show, The Interview. The Waqf controversy refuses to die down. If anything, it is getting worse by the minute. Protesters have taken to the streets and MPs from the opposition gone to court. The government's plea that the bill is aimed at reform is lost in the din. What one hears are angry voices and terms like looters, black law, and a bid to end autonomy of Muslims. It is time to revisit the bill, which has received the President's assent. It is time to decode and deconstruct the opposition's narrative and understand the different layers of this complex term, Waqf. Who better to put this in the right perspective than Arif Khan, Governor of Bihar? His is a sane voice that has supported reform amongst Muslims. For those who remember, Arif Khan had resigned as a minister in protest against Rajiv Gandhi's U-turn in the Shah Banu case. He had also opposed triple talaq much before the BJP government banned it. An author, Khan remains the go-to person for understanding Islam, religion and Sufism. We have him here with us today to speak on the Waqf bill in this edition of HT's weekly talk show, The Interview. Welcome to the show, Mr. Arif Khan, and thank you for being here with us.
Thank you very much.
Before we get into specifics, let me begin by asking you, what is Waqf in Islam?
Waqf, the term does not find any mention in Quran. But since Quran is full of exhortations, asking people to spend money on the poor, on the deprived, on the marginalized, on widows, on destitute, and there are many prophetic narrations also. So essentially, possibly in the light of all these exhortations, this institution was created so that apart from individual charities, some institution can be created which can look after the poor and the needy and the destitute, possibly, because it does not find any mention. As far as the term itself is concerned, there is no mention of Waqf. And Waqf essentially, etymologically, not essentially, etymologically means to detain, to stop, to hold back. No, definitely the purpose of the Waqf is spending money for, and that where Quran and prophetic narrations have exhorted people to spend, that has been described in Quran as in the way of God. When you spend money on the poor, then you are spending in the way of God. In fact, it goes to the extent of saying, Man zal ladhi yuqridullahu qardan hasana. Who is there who will give a beautiful loan to God? The money which you spend on the poor, on the destitute, on the needy, that is considered as a loan. Loan means it will be repaid to you, paid back to you, and in much more than what you have spent.
So, in the light of what you're saying, then the narrative that this bill or the amendments are an interference in the religious autonomy do not hold good.
That question will arise only after you show that the property and wealth of the Waqf is being used for the destitute, for the poor and the needy. If you show that, then this question will arise.
No, but if you said it is not mentioned anywhere in the Quran Sharif, then obviously it has very little to do with religion.
No. Religion has all to do with, in fact, it goes to the extent of saying that if you are a believer, then you must recognize acknowledge the right of the poor and the deprived in your wealth. Waqf, the term itself is not mentioned. But Quran is full of exhortations asking people to spend money in the common sense of charity. I am doing good to somebody. No, Quran does not recognize it. It says you are doing good to yourself. If you are spending money from your wealth, in your wealth, if you recognize the right of the deprived and the poor, and you spend money on them, then you are doing good to yourself. So Waqf is fine, but the question which you have raised, that question can arise only if we show that the Waqf in India, they are working for the good of the poor and the common man.
Which you don't think seems to be happening in the current...
It is not question of thinking. In Delhi, in Lucknow, in Patna, in Hyderabad, other places, show me one charity institution. And these are the cities which have Waqf property worth of not millions, billions of rupees. You can see an hotel on Waqf property, and the Waqf people have given it on a lease of 99 years. Who is the beneficiary? Are the poor people beneficiary? Paltry sum monthly which comes to them. Are you ready to believe that is the only consideration? You come to Patna, for instance, one after the other, you will see mall on the Waqf property, you will see residential apartments on Waqf property, and in Patna particularly I am saying, where the Waqf property is huge, simply huge. Can you show one hospital working for those who are not in a position to pay for their treatment? Can you show one educational institution? Because you will have to remember that exhortation is addressed to the believers. But Quran clearly says that beneficiaries, as far as beneficiaries are concerned, beneficiary may be anybody. Quran itself says, إِنَّمَا الصَّدْقَاتُ لِلْفُقْرَاءِ وَالْمَسَاكِينَ. The faqir term has been used for Muslim destitute, and miskin has been used for non-Muslim destitute. And possibly this care has been taken because when for the first time in the early period, when money was given to a non-Muslim, people had objected. How can you give this money to a non-Muslim? Then it was pointed out, read the verse of the Quran carefully. It includes everybody, provided that person is a destitute, is deprived, is poor, needy. So when you have totally failed, miserably failed, to work in accordance with the objective, the stated objective of the Waqf, then something needs to be done to rectify the wrong which is being committed. Secondly, I have already told you that Waqf means to detain, and Quran clearly prohibits detaining money. It insists on circulation. So if Waqf is being used to detain, then it is totally un-Islamic. If Waqf is being used to help the poor, then it is in accordance with the exhortations of the religion.
You know, while on non-Muslims, there are 2 points. One, there is objection to non-Muslims being on the Waqf board. And second, a non-Muslim cannot give Waqf unless he has adopted the religion for 5 years. नए मुसलमानों को वक्फ देने की इजाज़त नहीं है. What do you have to say on that?
I do not know. Because if you go strictly by the Islamic law, law will be applicable in Islamic state. This is a paradox that we are applying religious laws in a secular democracy. But if you talk of Muslim law, then Muslim law obliges you to take care of non-Muslims, not ask them to create waqf or contribute to the waqf. They are to be taken care of. Where is the question? But so many distortions have happened. This is also one of those distortions. But the basic question is that according to Muslim law, the status of a non-Muslim is that of a zimmi. In
Beneficiary.
practical terms, a second-class citizen whose security is to be ensured by the state. He is not an equal citizen. How can you ask him to create the Waqf? In fact, most of the exhortations are addressed to the individuals. Possibly, the whatever the establishment was there, or the religious scholars were there, they might have thought that we can also create an institution to do the charity. Individuals have been exhorted, but institution can also be created. And that is how the institution of Waqf came into existence. But this is to serve an objective, because Waqf, the name itself, goes against the grain of Quranic teaching, which says, La yakuna dulatan bainal aghniya minkum, in order that it may not make a circuit between the wealthy among you. The money should remain in circulation. Money cannot be detained. But since money is being detained, property is being detained, the purpose is to use the income from that wealth or property for the benefit of the poor. Therefore, they must have thought it is legitimate, and I think they were right. The basic thing is how the objective is being, what they are doing to secure the objective, which is a prescribed objective.
And that in the present context, and like you mentioned, you see it being derailed. And would you then agree that there is large scale mismanagement?
I'm not saying it has been derailed. I'm saying it has lost its way. Nowhere, at least in northern India, I can say, but I have given you an example from South India also. There is a 5-star hotel on the property, on the Waqf property, and the lease is not for 30 years, not for 40 years, for 99 years. A small sum of amount they are paying to the Waqf board. Are you ready to believe that there is nothing else to that transaction? How is it possible that such prime property has been given to an organization to run a 5-star hotel, and the money which they are receiving from them is very small?
So, in that sense, the amendments or what has happened is, or the reform is long overdue?
Long overdue. It was more than 40 years back when I was minister in Uttar Pradesh government. Most of the Waqf here in India are alal aulad, which means beneficiaries are the progeny of the one who has created the Waqf. Now suppose a Waqf was created about 150 years back. Now if 150 years back he had only 2 sons. Now after 3-4 generations, the number has increased to 40 or 45 or 50. Mutawalli, that is one who will manage that property, can be only one person. Now all others have filed cases against him.
So, what is the point you're making?
The point I am making that this is totally, it has nothing to do with the religion. But here, in the case of Waqf alal aulad, it has been totally abused. And that is the reason why late 19th century, Privy Council held that this is totally un-Islamic. And 1913, similarly as it was done in the case of Shah Bano, to overturn the judgment of the Privy Council, Jinnah brought a bill in the central legislature in 1913, and the name of the bill was Validating Act, which means something which is illegal, but we are validating it. So most part of the Waqf properties, they are not really Islamic.
I'm going to quote Mr. Asaduddin Owaisi, who has said that the BJP government is doing the work of looters and wants to, quote unquote, snatch away Waqf properties, and is also in one sense taking away the autonomy of the Muslims.
Well, this is for the BJP. You should address this question to BJP spokesperson. But I will request you to go to Hyderabad and see the huge property, Darussalam, which MIM secured, this was the headquarter of the Razakars. Razakars, who were the Razakars? Who opposed integration of Hyderabad into India. And as a political deal, this property MIM was able to secure. That's a Waqf property. How that property is being abused for personal benefits, go and see for yourself.
Okay, let me ask you that shouldn't the right to establish and manage religious institutions be that of the particular religious sect? And in temple boards or gurdwaras, for instance, non-Hindus and non-Sikhs are usually not members of the board. So one criticism here or one angst is that why this exception for Waqf, and isn't this in one sense discriminatory?
If this is the property in which I also have a right, I'm a non-Muslim and I have a right in it, I have been recognized as a beneficiary, then is it not my concern to see how this property is being managed? Property does not belong to me. But I know that the scripture recognizes property has been donated by you. But the provision under which you have donated this property, that provision, if I am poor and destitute, that provision recognizes my right in the income of this property, and I am not receiving anything.
So, in that sense, inclusion of non-Muslims is valid?
I have stated the position. It is for you to come to any conclusion. If I am not receiving, my right is recognized, the property is there, income is coming from that property, and despite my being identified as a legal beneficiary of this property, I am not receiving anything. Do we need to do something about it or not?
I'm asking you.
I've stated the position. Let people decide whether I have a right to feel concerned how the property is being managed or not. I am not receiving a single farthing from this property. But I know for sure that my right is there. So my right is being violated.
So, in that sense, and again I'm trying to understand this, this is different from the example of temples and gurudwaras where the beneficiary is not relevant.
Here the beneficiary is not only a Muslim, the non-Muslims are also beneficiaries of the proceeds of this wealth.
Therefore, they have a right.
And they are not receiving anything.
So, therefore, that right is valid.
I do not know. I know that once I will feel concerned if I'm a non-Muslim and I'm not receiving, despite my right in it, I'm not receiving anything. I will feel concerned about it. I will urge the government to step into this and ensure that my rights are not trampled upon.
Help me to decode the Waqf by user clause. And again, as I said, there is a hue and cry about it being removed.
Why user clause? You should try to find out how many new Waqf properties, how many properties last 50 years or after independence, how many properties have been used to create a new Waqf. People have stopped doing this. Why? They build the mosque, they don't want to get it registered with the Waqf board, because Waqf boards have become den of all kind of malpractices. But what Waqf board does? You build a mosque, you want to do some charity work and you create an institution for that. Simply because you are a Muslim, they will come and they will lay claim on it. The man who has spent money, he does not want it to become part of the Waqf board, to be managed by the Waqf board. So laws are there to serve the interest of the people or to force them to submit to some corrupt administration.
The big picture, that this is less about the bill, the reform, the amendments, and more about the trust deficit between the Muslims and the current government which is in power. What would you say to that?
What was the position as far as the trust is concerned? 1986, there was Congress government and BJP had only 2 members in Lok Sabha. And after the Supreme Court judgment, Muslim Personal Law Board was saying that religion is in danger. And they were describing triple talaq as, if you say something against triple talaq, they were saying this is interference in Islam. 2017, when the same issue came up before the Supreme Court, then they themselves said that triple talaq does not find mention anywhere. It is unjust. And we ourselves shall start a campaign for the abolition of the talaq. But you don't do it. They were asking the Supreme Court. So why there was so much trust deficit in 1986? And recently, after that, when the law was made, what they were saying? Same leadership. They were saying this is not to ban triple divorce, but to put Muslims, large number of Muslims, into jails. How many Muslims have been sent to jail? At the time of CAA, they were saying that this is not to give citizenship to the persecuted people. This is to deprive Muslims of their citizenship. How many Muslims have been deprived of the citizenship? If you go further back into history, 1946 they were saying, if partition is not accepted, then Islam, Muslim culture, language, and everything associated with the Muslims will come to an end. Did that happen? So if you are crying wolf all the time, why you should take these people seriously?
So, do you agree or do you not agree, looking and asking you purely objectively, that Muslims are at the receiving end with the BJP in power and in one sense being targeted?
You know, I highly object to this terminology. Muslims, for you they are all one group, monolithic group. By using this terminology, you make them feel as they are not part of the mainstream. What is your perception of a Muslim? I consider myself a Muslim, but that is the relationship between me and my God. In public affairs, I am an Indian. So here, the real problem is here in your mind. The very fact that we try to brand everybody, we try to put them all in one category, I find it problematic. Even in 1986, there were 200 and 327 Muslim IAS officers, IPS officers, led by Badruddin Tayyabji, and more than 100 were Muslim professors who had sent a petition to Prime Minister asking not to submit to the demand of Personal Law Board. They do not appear in your reckoning. Only Asaduddin Owaisi for you is a Muslim. Go to any village. The Hindus and Muslims, they can't do without each other.
I'm going to push this a little further, and I'll still try, which is about the larger narrative of hate. And again, you're going to, of course, contradict, and you're welcome to do that. But what about the demonizing of Muslims, strong word, what about love jihad, and so on and so forth, where...
Ask those who talk about it. To me, they are not important. To me, the voices of integration are important. To me, when it is said that we have the same DNA, हमें सबका साथ चाहिए, सबका विश्वास, that is it. To you, love jihad is important. To me, it is not important. Therefore, I am not going to respond to it.
Coming back to the deficit, how do you think it can be fixed, and what can
First,
and what should...
you will have to explain to me what is the trust deficit.
Where the Muslims feel that they are at the receiving end.
Well, give me some specific thing.
Bulldozer justice.
All the welfare schemes of the government, whether it is houses to the poor, the Muslim share is much more than their population. That you can't see. Few cases of bulldozer. And bulldozing whose houses? Who were killing people randomly. This is where the problem lies. Maybe using bulldozer was not very legal. See, these individual instances, you consider them is important enough to raise question about. But this vast majority of the people, poor people, who are receiving gas cylinder, who have received gas cylinder, not a single complaint anywhere in the country. 1.4 billion people. Houses for the poor, food for the poor. Not a single complaint from anywhere.
So, one last question. What is the way forward? And where are we going from here?
Have faith in India, India's constitution, India's people, India's culture and civilization. This culture believes in promotion of diversity. This culture considers diversity as a great source to strengthen our unity. There is no threat to any identity, sub-identity, provided we are Indians. But we are creating only suspicion and doubt. This country has gone through partition. This country has suffered so much because of these divisions. But we are still using words and terminology which promotes division. I'll give you one quote from Ali Shariati. He was the man who descended from Khomeini in Iran. He was a great religious scholar. He said, he's invoking God. Ya Allah, हमें ऐसा बनाइए कि हम दीन को दुनिया के लिए इस्तेमाल ना करें. दुनिया दीन मतलब टू कोई गेन्स के लिए, वर्ल्डली गेन्स के लिए दीन का इस्तेमाल ना करें. हाँ, वर्ल्डली गेन्स को दीन के कामों के लिए, है ना. बहुत बहुत हमारे यहाँ कहा गया है, अपने यहाँ भारत में कहा गया, विद्या ददाति विनयम, विनयम विनयाद याति पात्रताम, पात्रत्वाम धनम आपनोति, धनाद धर्मम ततो सुखम. धन से धर्मार्थ के काम करने चाहिए.
On this note, let me thank you for being here, for your time, and for helping us decode the complexities of Waqf.
Thank you very much.